All right, we're back here once again with the Great Villain Podcast. I am Justin. That's my boy DJ. We are here to talk about the Seattle Mariners 2023 season and some of this last offseason and what we're expecting from our boys in blue. So, DJ, what happened this offseason to be setting up this regular season? Or what happened or even didn't happen?
I think the Mariners had some initial ideas of wanting to go and get a bigger bat to add to their lineup. There's no doubt. But I think what happened is what always happens is Jerry Dipoto goes out there with an idea of what he wants to offer to a certain player or a group of players. And when he gets told, just like last year when Simeon turned out to be 7 years for $25 million and the Mariners were more like 5 years. So Jerry hears a price and he pivots. Here's the price of 10 years or more for all these starting shortstops, and he pivots. Mitch Haniger goes away. They go and get Teoscar Hernandez. Basically replaces the same player, same age, but without an injury history.
Well, without the injury history, a little bit more consistent production because of that. Age helps and cost. You didn't have to sign Mitch Haniger to a multi-year contract. Instead, you got Teoscar Hernandez. Same guy, or similar guy, but for only 1 year. And you have the option, if you want, of paying. Or you can, I think they will absolutely give him a qualifying offer and recoup a draft pick from that acquisition.
Do you think the Mariners regret not giving Mitch Haniger a qualifying offer?
No, not at all. I don't think... so Haniger's market changes if he has a qualifying offer attached to him. In fact, look at what the Giants have done over the last two off seasons. They went and got Carlos Rodon because he did not have a qualifying offer attached to him. They tried to get Correa this year. They did get Haniger. None of those guys had efficiency, as you would expect from Farhan Zaidi. Is that who he is? Is that the guy?
That is correct. That is the GM of the Giants.
Yeah, and he's an analytics guy, and he sees it as an obvious, as just an extra bonus to getting a player who could be pretty good. And then they turn around and slap him with a qualifying offer. In the case of Rodon, it works. But I think that there's only a handful of those types of players, and you kind of have to get damaged goods. And I think if Haniger was given the qualifying offer, his market changes so much that he would just have come back on a 1-year contract. And you can complain about having Teoscar for 1 year, but you would just have Haniger for 1 more year too, at an even more inflated price. And who knows if he's going to be able to put together a season that he needs to have to make that worth it. I think Teoscar came at a really cheap price of only Eric Swanson. He's a reliever. He was a pretty good reliever, but he is a middling reliever. We didn't even use him in the playoffs. He's only, those sorts of guys can only give you so much value, and it's not like we have other better options as well. So, if that's the cost, sign me up.
This is also the same Eric Swanson until last year was just a up and down. Is he a starter? Is he a reliever? Couldn't hold down any kind of role. And then all of a sudden he kind of had a breakthrough. And even through the first couple months of last year, I wasn't ready to jump on the Eric Swanson bandwagon because I wanted to see him put it together for a little bit. So yeah, if the cost to get a middle-order bat is just Eric Swanson, who isn't a closer, who isn't really anything, he's like a 7th, maybe 8th inning guy, and I get a middle-order right-handed right fielder, sign me up.
Yeah, Swanson learned the split finger, or he learned that breaking pitch that he was able to work off his fastball, and his fastball was always elite. I didn't record this, but I said this, we got Swanson before we ever started recording anything. But you remember a while ago I said I loved Eric Swanson's fastball when he first came up. And that was the one thing he had going for him. And turns out he still has a really good fastball. Then he had to figure out a breaking pitch off of that, and he turns into a 2-pitch reliever, and that's really all he is. And you can say, oh, well, he had like 4 years of service time left or before free agency. It's like, well, it's 4 years of a reliever, guys. So, you're really banking
4 years of a reliever that pitches every second day.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't like relievers all that much and you're not willing to give them long-term contracts, and why are you counting years on a guy? You're probably going to non-tender him like 2 years after that. So really, it's like 2 years of reliever, and before he becomes either too expensive or he's just not worth his contract anymore. So. I'll take Teoscar with the opportunity to extend him. He's going to be younger than when Haniger, this last offseason. Haniger was like 32. Teoscar's going to be younger than that next year when he hits free agency. He's going to be more consistent. If you're going to sign someone, you sign Teoscar, not Mitch. And I think the difference is just like being a bit of a homer. And like Mitch Haniger was our guy. We've struggled with him. We saw him, and Teoscar's a new guy, so he doesn't have that sense of he's ours, and I don't want to lose him type of situation. I think that's what it is.
Mitch was a great player. I mean, it was a great find for Jerry Dipoto to pull him out of Arizona to come in the trade.
Yeah, I mean, we got Gene Segura out of that deal too, and we turned it into J.P. Crawford, and and we got good years out of Haniger. It's just it's too bad that it didn't quite all come together throughout his whole time here. He was a nice player to have. One of the other outfielders, much maligned outfielder that we have in the system, my boy Jared Kelenic goes in, crushes a couple home runs yesterday in yesterday's spring training game.
Couple monster shots.
Yeah. And what are your expectations for him this year, DJ?
I would hope that he can just stay somewhat consistent. I don't need him to go out there and be a 30-30 guy. I need him to play within himself. Stay within himself, like he said this spring. What he's saying this spring is win every pitch, right? Win each at bat. So stay within yourself. Don't try and do too much. You've got the left-handed platoon of A.J. Pollock, which I think was a very solid sign, especially for like $7 million. Gives a nice compliment, gives you nice depth in the outfield. I do like, if I could have Brian Reynolds without having to give up the moon, would I take Brian Reynolds over Jared Kelenic? I probably would. But I'm not giving up the moon for Brian Reynolds, and the Pirates have really no reason to give him up for anything than the moon. So that's why you saw no movement in the Brian Reynolds saga all winter.
So you think Brian Reynolds will have a better season than Jared Kelenic will?
Where the Mariners franchise is right now, if I could get Brian Reynolds without giving up the moon and have him over Kelenic, I would take the consistency of the known product than the uncertainty of Jared Kelenic. I do think Jared Kelenic's going to be fine, but if you're asking me would I take the known product of Brian Reynolds over Jared Kelenic, I would. But I'm not giving up the moon. I'm not giving up like Gilbert or Kirby or any of these other wild ideas that people think they're going to be giving up for him.
So in a theoretical Brian Reynolds trade, you would trade Kelenic in that deal?
You probably have to trade Kelenic. I don't know how, because if you go and get Reynolds and you have Teo Hernandez and you got Julio, where does Kelenic fit? So it's like you're either deciding you want Brian Reynolds or you're deciding you want Jared Kelenic.
Well, Teo's on a 1-year contract, so that's not the problem. I see the Brian Reynolds deal as like, yeah, the Mariners would love to have him. He's a switch hitter and put him out there in left field to flank Julio and center. That sounds just yes, please, more of that. A grade lower, he's a younger version. He's clearly not the swing, the body, everything. It looks good. And Gilbert plus, to get someone like Brian Reynolds.
That's just more of those, way out there. That's maybe the Pirates are like, yeah, give us Kelenic and and Kirby and something else, and we'll think about it.
Yeah,
And
how
we're
low
like,
how low do you think we are on Kellenic? Because I'm now the problem with Kellenic is that he's got one more option left on his contract, and so if he were to struggle this year and he would get sent down, you burn his option, meaning that he has no options next year, and you're going into a make or break season for him. And really, this year is the make or break season because next year is his last chance wherever he ends up. But the problem is he's got such good pedigree that how do you give up on this guy? Sort of the same thing with Taylor Trammell. Now, I recall seeing Taylor Trammell after he was drafted and then traded from the Reds to the Padres, and I read his profile back then, and I wasn't enthusiastic. And then we got him in the Aaron Nola deal. Austin Nola deal, and I still wasn't all that enthusiastic. And now he's got a busted hamate bone in his hand, which I had one of those. Yeah, it takes 2 months. He's out, but at the same time, there wasn't really a great a spot for him on the roster.
I don't think Taylor Trammell was even going to make the roster, even if he was healthy.
Yeah, he would have had to really win that.
He would have had to really overcome. Kelenic would have had to really struggle, and Trammell would have had to shown that he can put together. Taylor Trammell's shown he's capable of putting together 7 to 10 days of sustained success.
Yeah,
nothing beyond that. It's kind of the same with Kelenic. They're kind of in the same boat here, so they were kind of both in make or break years essentially.
Yeah,
but Kelenic really was going to get the first chance.
Yeah, he has the better pedigree. He's clearly the guy that they value the more. I value him more just off of my experience with these two players, and not because I'm biased, but I am. But at the same time, Taylor Trammell was ranked really high on those prospect rankings, and quickly fell off for a reason. And I think we see the reason out there. He's got the physical tools, he just hasn't put it together either.
And now he's in his third organization.
Yeah, now he's third try here, and he's running out of choice. He's running out of options as well. So the Mariners are using him as insurance, but don't be surprised if one of those guys is in a trade, probably for Bryan Reynolds. Because really, the Mariners can use Bryan Reynolds a lot. And if they can get one of those other outfielders to work, Kelenic or Trammell, or even Cade Marlowe, who had a nice home run to straightaway center field the other day, because they're all left-handed corner outfielder types. Marlowe at least has the 3 options available, so he's got more time. So it's up to these other two. But yeah, one of them will get cashed in at some point for something.
You can't have 3 redundant choices all doing the same thing.
Yeah, there's just not enough room on a roster to have them all. So swinging over to second base, are you? So I've seen complaints. The Mariners only got a 1-year rental guy with Colton Wong, and they're going to be back in the same boat again next year. Oh my God, they did it again.
Well, I would ask them, what would you have rather done? Would you have rather them jumped in the pool with these dead contracts at the end of these? Would you rather have gone and done Xander Bogaerts at 13 years? I mean, out of all these players that signed these big deals, not all of them were really available to the Mariners. Let's be honest here. Okay, so Trey Turner was never coming to Seattle.
What?
I know. It would have been great. Dansby Swanson never coming to Seattle.
Corey Seager, he got because Kyle Seager endorsed the Mariners. Right?
Yeah. So I mean, some of these players are just not really available to the Mariners as much as you'd want Devoto to go and drop the armored truck off at their door. It's just not happening. There wasn't a great. You shouldn't complain about 1-year deals because that means you're only tied to them for 1 year. Mm-hmm. And you can find someone better possibly next year. Or maybe Colton Wong is decent. He turns out to be better than Adam Frazier. Let's hope he turns out to be better than Adam Frazier.
I don't think that one's too hard.
It's pretty hard to be worse than what Adam Frazier was last year.
Adam Frazier did exactly what he was expected to do and be a singles hitter and with no power, because he's never been anything more than that. And did we record it that where I said he was pretty much J.P. Crawford? And I don't know if it was in the recording or not, but I've said it enough times. And yeah, they're pretty much the same guy. So
yeah, and that's in lie. The problem is you can't have two J.P. Crawford types.
You really don't want two J.P. Crawford types
where you're just looking at singles hitters with no pop.
Colton Wong at least has brought more power to the table over the years, and if you're one of those that are expecting J.P. Crawford to suddenly hit 20 home runs because the shift is gone, then first off,
that launch angle is going to definitely change with that second baseman not out there.
Yeah,
definitely happening.
First off, these two things have nothing to do with each other, and J.P. Crawford's never hitting 20 home runs in a season, not unless he sells out. Just like Ichiro could have hit 40. He has to want to. Second base, it's one of those situations where it's like, last year folks were like, oh man, we missed out on Trevor Story. Well, Trevor Story's missing out on a whole season now with Tommy John surgery. But he was going to play shortstop too, right? So
yeah, which is apparently never going to be the issue because he couldn't play. Everybody deemed he wasn't a shortstop when he was a free agent. He didn't have with his elbow, wasn't going to be able to play shortstop. So
I'm happy to have missed out on that one. Yeah, we could be tied to Javi Baez for a couple more years. I'm sure that
the Tigers would be willing to let us have Javi Baez.
Yeah, who's their former GM now, Avila.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could call him up and he would be happy to get that contract off his hands. He's not even on the Tigers, but he'll be happy to trade him.
Get his job back. I didn't actually sign Javi Baez this contract. He's not there.
Yeah, I traded him, guys. Can I have my job back, please? I traded him for you. It doesn't matter what we get back. We got out of that shit contract. Because, man, Javi Baez was like the obvious landmine. And
he was the one player that was never going to be a Mariner, even if he wanted to, because he's not the Mariners type of player.
Oh, yeah. Him, and also I think in some ways Nick Castellanos, because I just don't think he strikes out too much, doesn't play enough defense. But then, it's like, but they always get these guys. It's like, yeah, but not on 5-year, $100 million contracts. So it's like I was saying on the phone to you the other day, is like talking about Kyle Schwarber. It's like Kyle Schwarber's that one player that kind of worked out of a lot of these that the Mariners actually might have had a chance at, but then at the same time, he's just a left-handed DH, pretty much, and because you really don't want him out there in the field more than you absolutely have to, and the people complaining about defense now on the team.
If you had Schwarber
out there, but he hits dingers, so that's cool. And he does it in the playoffs, so that's cool. But, yeah, also another huge contract. The Mariners they're not giving that kind of contract to that kind of somewhat flawed player. And it's not that they can't afford it necessarily because of the payroll, because, payroll is very, very low. But at the same time, if you go around giving out, here's 5 years, $100 million, and for you, and here's another $200 million contract over here, suddenly all of that extra space you had gets eaten up, and now you're like,
how
man.
do you sign Logan Gilbert and George Kirby and Cal Raleigh and...
Yeah, you're going to have to get rid of these big contracts and eat a big chunk of it on the way out the door. And it's like, that means you have to find someone else to take it, and it's just not really worth it. Also, the contract's not really paying for itself. I mean, Nick Castellanos was crap until he turned in a pretty good World Series there and a good playoff run. So,
Oh, Phillies fans were hating him throughout the regular season.
yeah, I can imagine Mariners fans. Imagine if the Mariners had gone out and signed someone like Javi Baez or Nick Castellanos or some of these underperforming, or Trevor Story now, and some of these underperforming guys, and I just imagine how pissed off people would be for Dipoto. They'd be calling for his head. Instead, he avoided these landmines, and people are upset that they didn't.
They're upset that we didn't spend, but yet they're not upset that we didn't end up with one of these landmines.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
You know.
And so I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at last year's market, and I'm just like, that Marcus Semien deal doesn't look that bad now that guys are signing 10, 11, 13-year contracts. I mean, Manny Machado just signed an 11-year, $350 million extension, and just said Bogart's got 13 years.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And it's sort of like it's void years in the NFL. It's dead money contracts. You're either going to have this guy on your roster soaking up money and playing time, or he's soaking up money, and it's just dead money on the back end. But you're like, whatever, flags fly forever. But then I say, are you sure you're going to get that flag, that pennant? Is it in the bag? Because I don't, you still have to beat the Astros, and you still got to, for the Padres, they still got to beat the Dodgers. And
Dodgers aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, the Dodgers are a big spending team. The Giants are a good team, and they like to spend. So, yeah, the Padres can spend all the money, all the prospects, and their owner can be like, there's risk in not doing anything, but it also seems like there's a lot of risk in doing stuff and having it blow up in your face. And so I think taking the smarter steps and not jumping onto obvious landmines and avoiding some of these problems that Dipoto has been avoiding, I think it actually serves him well in the long run, that we're not having to just deal with this dead weight of guys that are underperforming their contracts or their replacement level, but they're also costing us $20 million.
On a side note, since we're on the Padres real quick, what are your thoughts? So Darvish originally went to the Padres saying $260 as an extension. The Padres came back to him with the $590, paying him less AAV but longer. So they're going to be paying him longer. Would you rather just pay him the $260 or add on those 3 years to keep the dead money lower? Keep him, but you're going to be paying him. It's going to be dead money.
Yeah, see, that's the issue, is that they're going to have this zombie payroll on the Padres. And, luckily there's no salary cap, but they're going to have to still pay tax on it. Or if they want to stay under the tax threshold, they're going to have to squeeze their actual payroll. So, what you can do, you just have to get a lot of players out of your minor league system. Because you are going to run a scrubby team out there, or at least a cheap team, not necessarily scrubs. So, it's an interesting strategy, and we'll see if it pays off. It used to work for teams like the Yankees because they had all the payroll, and so they could absorb underperforming large contracts, but they were fine with it because they're like, well, the guy's not living up to his $30 million contract, but he still was posting 4 wins. So you're like, whatever. And you're paying him like a 6-win player.
So if you were in Dipoto's shoes and the same thing happened, would you rather the Mariners pay Darvish $260, or would you rather have the low AAV?
At this point, the Mariners can absorb a higher AAV on a shorter contract.
So that's what I was thinking. I'd rather do the 2. Give me the 2 at 60.
But also, they're luckily not in that position because they've developed pitching and they went out and nabbed the best pitcher available, Luis Castillo, and in a massively underrated deal, we got a steal, and we gave up a whole lot of nothing.
Whole lot of nothing.
And we are sitting real pretty after giving Luis Castillo that extension. He is the number one top of the rotation starter that we wanted. We got Robbie Ray, and then we said we needed another one too, please. And then we got that guy. And then also Logan Gilbert and George Kirby stepping up and becoming legit upper half rotations of guys in the rotation. I don't know where they top out at, but seems to me George Kirby has the higher ceiling. I think Logan Gilbert's going to be mighty serviceable there as like a 2 or 3. I think Kirby has a Cy Young level ceiling, but we'll see. We've seen both these guys for less than 2 years at the major league level. George Kirby only for less than 1, so we'll see where they top out at, and injuries being what they are. But injuries being what they are we happy that we've kept Marco Gonzalez and Chris Flexen around to play as insurance?
I think going into the offseason, I'd been, if you told me at the beginning of the offseason that we started spring training and both Chris Flexen and Marco Gonzalez were on the roster, I would have been rather surprised by that, just for the fact that I would have figured they would have, especially Chris Flexen being $8 million starter is more than reasonable to be able to get you something in return. The fact that he's still on the roster means that everybody apparently doesn't value Chris Flexen. So if we have Flexen and Marco as your 5 and your 6 guy, and then you've got your other younger guys like Bryce Miller, Hancock, Dollard, and then you got Margevicius and other guys. There's enough depth there that you don't have to be worried about. I can't see Flexen getting moved at this point unless some team suffers some kind of an injury. Because what would you trade Flexen for? We were kind of talking about this on the phone. I don't know what you would trade Flexen for that would be beneficial to trading him. It's not like you need the $8 million salary room.
At the moment, no. And the roster, I mean, are the Pirates interested in trading Brian Reynolds? That's the only thing that you're going to trade for is for something actually good. You're not really looking for prospects and depth. Because you kind of have that stuff. I mean, it's like, we need middle infield depth. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess, but not really. But Chris Flexen ain't going to bring you back anything that you can't just pick up off of waivers. And whatever you pick up, it ain't going to be sexy, right? This last season, the Mariners had like 10 guys who had a cumulative total of 50-odd plate appearances between all 10 of them. And so you just get guys that are Band-Aids. And they come in, they play a game, whatever, and then they're gone. You don't necessarily call up your best prospect because you don't want to burn their options. You don't want to start their service clocks. You don't need to. So you don't do it. It shocked me, surprised me. Was it 2 years ago when the Mariners called up Matt Brash, put him on the 40-man, or put him on the active roster at the end of the season for no reason? Or was that this? They did that with a reliever. Yeah, it was Brash. And it's like, what are you doing? But, then they use them the whole next year. They didn't burn an option unnecessarily. But, if you're going to call up Bryce Miller to cover one start and then option him down after that, you're not going to do that. He doesn't even have to be on the 40-man right now. Why are you rushing him all the way up? So if he's going to get to the 40-man, he's going to get used, and he's going to stay on the 26. On the active 26 and until he proves that he shouldn't be there. I think the Mariners have a ton of starting pitching depth, and I think it's just not proven guys because they are the Taylor Dollard and Emerson Hancock and Bryce Miller. But those guys, how much were you really counting Gilbert and Kirby as depth before they ended up just making the roster and staying there. And you have dynamic guys like Matt Brash, who were kind of always ticketed to the bullpen. But, look at our bullpen now. We got Brash and Munoz and this Prelander Baroa guy. And
Seawald.
And Seawald, yeah. And, you have
only
a ton
have
of guys.
so many spots that you can... especially when you have to have the balanced rosters of 13 and 13,
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't like it, but, and so you have to, you're going to keep flexing on the roster, and Marco, they round out your 5. You're not going to go to a 6-man rotation. I'm not a big fan of that, and it doesn't seem like the team is either. I don't think you have to.
The only teams that do 6-man rotation are teams that don't have true number ones, right? I mean, you want Luis Castillo taking the ball less than any time that he can possibly take the ball? No, I want Luis Castillo taking the ball every time he can.
Yeah, I guess someone argue for less injuries potentially, and it's like also less bang for your buck because your guy isn't pitching as much. But less injuries, maybe. We don't even know if the 6-man rotation really has an effect on injuries, and doesn't seem to really hold up. They have.
Has it really helped the Angels that much? It seems like the Angels still have as many injuries going with 6-man having Shohei.
I think it's an organizational philosophy thing, and I think the Mariners, throughout their system, seem to have a few less injuries, or we seem to baby guys coming out of right after we draft them. We tend to really work with them and test them out, and then once they get going, they don't seem to have injuries. Once they get going, then it's about working on pitches and doing things. I mean, look at our rotation last year. Look at it the year before. Look at a lot of the guys that have stuck around. The Mariners now have a reputation as a nice landing spot for pitchers to work on stuff and to get healthy and get right. So I think they're doing something different. I don't know what that is, and I only have this little bit of data, I guess, that is to present. But it does seem as if they're doing something smarter, better than some of these other organizations. And there is no secret out there that the Mariners are, that Dipoto has always valued the minor league system and put a lot of emphasis on it since the start of the rebuild. Because he did have to sort of empty it out when he first took over, tried to, get what he could out of that roster. But since the rebuild, we've been targeting certain players at the top of the lineup or as top of the draft, and those guys are either been very productive or injuries have derailed what they've been able to do. Kyle Lewis would look really nice. A healthy Kyle Lewis. Oh, man. A healthy Evan White would look real nice out there right now. But unfortunately, both those guys missed. But then the next wave of prospects, we just got Felnin Celestine, I think is how you say his name. And he's, the next A-Rod? And, we've drafted last year in the first round Cole Young. And he's a middle infielder. Well, there's your middle infield tandem in the next few years. So J.P. Crawford, don't expect an extension.
Hoping that we don't end up with one too many bad years left of J.P. Crawford.
Yeah, and, JP's he does what he does, and he's not going to hit for much power. He's not a real big dude, and he doesn't take a real mighty hack. But he's fine, and he's a fine enough shortstop, and he puts up some value, but he's nothing special, and you probably shouldn't put him on your fantasy team. I wouldn't. But, a guy who might be a sneaky good ad is Dylan Moore. Just because he's going to get playing time and he's going to run, and he just got an extension from the Mariners this offseason, 3 years, and I think there's a lot of value there because it's a guy he's got some sneaky pop, and it's just a matter of staying healthy, and they're going to get him plenty of playing time this year.
Yeah, I would imagine that I could see him hitting close to double-digit home runs.
Oh, he's going to get there. He's double-digit, no problem.
And, between him and Haggerty being able to steal bags, you're going to see plenty of late-inning defensive replacements when they need a bag stolen. I mean, even when they put Haggerty in last year, everybody knew when Haggerty goes in, he's going to steal the bag, right? How many times did he get caught? Not very many.
He got greased up and went sliding in there.
Like, now with the bags being even bigger, right? Now we got this big pizza boxes for bags.
That ham, that ham just goes. Swag.
So yeah, I like the overall roster construction of the Mariners. I think it's very solid from top to bottom. As you can tell, there's no real battles in camp, right? I mean, there might be a battle for like last bullpen spot, but other than that,
where do you think? So does Evan White? Oh yeah, what do you think of Evan White? Where does his season end up this year? Do we see him in the majors? Does he contribute? Is he going to get hurt again? I mean,
see, that is the question.
What's the magic 8 ball? Tell me what to say. Tell me what to think.
Shake the magic 8 ball. Is Evan White going to be healthy? Because if Evan White is healthy, then I think he does play a role with the Mariners this year. Whether it be as, get France some days off, put France at DH, get some days off from France.
So, yeah, we had
they definitely want to get Evan White up. If he's healthy and he's swinging, he's going to play a role at some point.
Yeah. So last year's, guy who...
You also have to remember, Ty France gets hit a lot, right? He gets beamed a lot. So the chances are that Ty France staying healthy for the whole season maybe not be the best. So there could be a chance that could be how Evan White gets back in the show.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't like always putting guys on the injured list, and I know there's a lot of other folks out there who are like, never play through injuries, but at the same time, like, are you not to make this sound terrible, but are you a man at all? Like, injuries, they happen. You just keep going through it, and it's only when it might hurt your performance a little bit, but you don't. It's like, oh, I got a bruise. I got to sit this one out, boys. I got a bruise. You can't do it. And pain is part of the game. If that's part of it. So, you get beat up. You have to play 100. There's 162 games in a season. So always go into the injured list every time.
Wait, you mean this is in the NBA where we get rest days?
Oh yeah. No one plays 82 anymore. Yeah. Bunch of pansies. But guys who do tend to get built-in rest days are the catchers. And last year we had the catcher position wasn't very settled until it got settled. And Cal Raleigh shows up and can't hit. He couldn't hit the year before either. Dude could play defense. That was clear. He could always play defense, but he just couldn't hit. And then he gets sent down, and he comes back because Tom Murphy gets hurt, and Luis Torrens is unplayable defensively, and Kirk Casale is unplayable offensively. And then who else did we have? Just more bad. And so we're
Brian O'Keefe, I think, was there.
And so we're like, all right, Cal Raleigh, at least you can catch. And then he also could hit. Boy could hit when he made contact. Do you see him repeating this year, or do you think he will improve, decline?
I think you're looking at about the same. I think what he gave you last year is probably going to be his career norm, and there's nothing wrong with it. He's going to strike out. He's not going to be one of those that all of a sudden figures it out and cuts the strikeout by 5%. Mm-hmm. There's going to be swing and miss in his game. It's just like Eugenio Suarez. There's going to be swing and miss in their game. Mm-hmm. And to a certain point, that the Mariners are fine with it because they do put the ball in the seats.
Yeah, well, you got to be.
It's not like your J.P. Crawford who swings and misses and doesn't do any damage. At least when these two guys hit,
Yeah.
having Tom Murphy is going to be huge.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big benefit because you don't have to worry about putting Luis Torrens or Casali back there, a non-zero player, right? When you need to give Cal the day off.
Yeah.
You can Tom Murphy. Tom Murphy is a very good baseball player. We need to remember that Tom Murphy is a good baseball player.
When healthy. I mean, he's kind of got he's got the injury bug, and he always has, and he's missed entire seasons a couple times now. And that will and he's a bit older. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Will ultimately keep his price tag down. But he's a nice, solid player. We picked up off waivers from the Rockies, got him for nothing.
Got him for absolutely nothing.
And he's turned into a real nice player for us. And he is absolutely key to the catcher position because, they're a bit short. I suppose the Mariners could use more depth, but I'm pretty sure like every team could use more depth everywhere.
Catcher, yeah.
That's just sort of how it goes. There's never enough good players to go around. So speaking of one last good player, there's this guy. I think he was in the top 20 of like overall on Major League Baseball Network. Yeah, he's like Julio.
That Julio guy.
I don't know how many O's they put in his name. He has got a weird spelling, but I hear he's pretty good. Yeah, he's like that Raul guy. I wonder if he can play defense as good. But the Julio Rodriguez guy, he seems to have a lot of hype around him. And I don't know, maybe people will realize who he is. He came out last year. He did some pretty good things for us. Does he improve on last year's numbers?
I think he does improve on last year's numbers because he's now got a full season. I mean, he even told you at the end of the last year he was wearing down, right?
Yeah.
It
was pretty obvious. He had back problems, and he could get out there, hit a home run, play a couple innings. So he's like, okay, guys, I got to take a breather.
I do expect him to get better. It's hard to say how much better he's going to be because last year was really...
Does he have 30... Well, okay, so last year he was sort of on pace for 30-30. He came up just a bit short. Does he get there this year?
I'll be curious to see how many times they actually want him running.
Well, damn it, they made the bases bigger.
They made the bases bigger, but how many times... I mean, you could see towards the middle of last year when he was kind of on his run, he wasn't really running that much. He got off... He stole a lot of bags early, and then the middle of the season, he didn't really steal that many.
Because he hit more home runs. It's hard to steal first, second base when you're just rounding them. Yeah.
I definitely 30-30s in his range. I mean, I think even if they were to let him go, I wouldn't say that 40-40's out of the question. He's got that type of pop, and he can steal those bags if he wanted to. It just kind of depends on the flow of the game. Do they need him running? Are they down? Are they up?
Well, if it's anything like the last 2 years, they're probably going to be tied. And they need that one more run to win it in the end. About these rules changes, we did an episode on rules changes last year, I think, right? Or was that for NFL? I don't know. I can't even remember what we've done anymore. But we've talked about it a bit and off the recording, and we. Or at least I, for one, I don't know. I've been watching the games with the pitch clock and stuff, and I'm not super. I don't know. I like it, but then at the same time, I don't. And because of the nuances within the rule of like the batter has to be set within the 8 seconds, but they are set when they give a look to the pitcher when they look at him. When you can see the white of the batter's eyes, that's when they're set, I guess.
And if you don't look at them, then it's a strike.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
I'm kind of with you or Tom before we started this. Is if he's in the box, I mean, what happened? It used to be a thing where you would quick pitch a guy, right? He's sitting there in the box. Oh, boom! I wind up. I throw the pitch, right? Mm-hmm. So how is that any different than the guy's in the box, but he doesn't look at me and I just throw the pitch?
yeah, I think you
Make
should
him put the onus on him to be ready, right?
Yeah, like, or say that, well, it's not up to the batter to give a look and then automatic strike. Say the pitcher can't pitch until there's 8 seconds or less on the clock, and then they can pitch. And it doesn't matter what the batter's doing. The batter could be sitting there picking his butt. It doesn't matter. He's in, as long as he's in the box, as he should be. Now, if he's not in the box, then yeah, you start doing automatic strikes and stuff because you got to get him in there, right?
Sure.
But then once he's there, well, then it's on the pitcher to throw strikes. Don't keep giving him automatic strikes. That seems kind of silly, because just because the batter doesn't have to be ready for the pitcher to throw a pitch. Because being in the batter's box was the ready signal. I just keep getting Kyle Seager going through my head. Bet to Jared Weaver, I think it was. I'm fucking ready.
Yeah. Throw the pitch.
So maybe is that what the players should do every time? Is adjust their cup and say fucking ready, and then you can throw the pitch. But I don't know. There's weird gamesmanship going on because you get a timeout during every plate appearance or something. So, do you call your timeout as you're entering the box so that you get set, or do you call your timeout during your plate appearance right before you hit a home run like Jared Kelenic did yesterday? It's I don't know how you do it. However, they get settled, but it's the pitch clock is people are getting used to it. I'm not sure I'm totally sold on how it works. And I'm not a big fan of things just happening automatically because we don't have any announcement type situation. So like the automatic ball four or automatic intentional walk thing, I'm not real happy with it. Every time I'm watching on TV or I'm sitting in the stands and stuff just happens. And you're like, what the hell? I got to look around trying to figure out I thought the guy was coming up to bat. Did I miss a pitch? No, there were no pitches. Oh shit. Okay. So it's stuff like that I'm not real thrilled about. I think the shift, how much of an impact do you think the shift is going to have? Because I got opinions on the shift, but yeah, who knows?
I don't think that the shift is going to have a great deal of effect on the overall play.
Yeah.
I mean, your Deadpool lefty hitters are going to get a few more base hits, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know that it's going to make that big of a difference so they're on first instead of being out, but then maybe there's double play that happens afterwards. So there is going to be more hits. The overall effect on the game, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to really help out numbers all that much. From the minor leagues, we found that it didn't really affect all that much. I bet major league teams are going to bend the rules or sort of break the spirit of the rule and reposition outfielders around to better defend certain players. And then I bet you Manfred and his competition committee is going to make outfielders stand in boxes too. And it's going to be kind of silly. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not real thrilled with it, but I would not be shocked.
Do you think that Manfred would they'd make an instant change to the way the rule read, kind of like what they did with the transfer rule, where they're like, oh,
not in season, no,
not in season. So it would go into the following season where they would do it. So you could move your left fielder if you wanted You move your left fielder in there, play a short, in between second and
Short right field.
short right field, and you move your center fielder. If you have a rangy center fielder like, Julio Rodriguez or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you could do some interesting stuff, interesting alignments with your outfielders. But I bet that you will have.
I don't think you're going to see it.
Boxes.
I don't think you're going to see enough of it to the point. I mean, Service has already come out and said that they're not interested in moving outfielder over there, and I think it also makes it harder with the pitch clock to shift people around. Right? I mean, all of a sudden, your left fielder's got to run all the way over there.
Asking premier athletes to be athletic is sort of, hey man, you have to run. What are there too many millions of dollars weighing you down? Fucking run. So, yeah. I think. So also Manfred announced that the runner on second base. Well, super happy about that, and he's keeping it. I'm not happy about it, but I don't think anyone really is. There's some people who hate baseball who are happy about it, but yeah, no.
Give me to the 12th inning. Give me the 10th and 11th innings of regular baseball, and if you want to do it starting the 12th inning, go for it. But give me 2 innings. Give me a compromise. We don't need to start in the 10th inning. Give me 2 innings and let me see if the guys can actually figure out how to put the ball in play without getting a jam shot and having the guy score.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as much so, we went to the Mariner playoff game against the Astros, and as much as that was a slog of a game, there was so much tension every inning. Even though there wasn't a guy on base, and ending the game so quickly, I'm not a fan of the extra base runner, but it's a gimmick, and that's what the leagues are trying to do nowadays, it seems. But
at least we got rid of the 7-inning doubleheaders.
Yeah, that did go away. That was nice, but also doubleheaders aren't really much of a thing anyway, so that's kind of a sad, I think. But so what you've all been waiting for, I'm certain, even though we never said we were going to do it, is we're going to give you some ideas of what is going to happen during this season throughout baseball. So throughout the league, what do we expect the AL West to look like? What's the landscape going to look like, DJ?
I do think that the Premier team, even though they do have some pitching question marks, losing Verlander is going to hurt them. I don't care what people say about, all their homegrown arms. You lose Justin Verlander, it's going to make a difference. McCullers is starting the year on the IL, right? So you don't have the same kind of dominance up top. And maybe McCullers only misses 2 or 3 weeks or a month. But that's still a month worth of games. Plus, we don't play the Astros. We play the Astros 7 less times or something like that each year. So that's less times we actually have to face them. I do think the Mariners roster is put together enough that we can compete with, our pitching 1 through 4 is, I dare you to find more than a handful of teams that have better 1 through 4 starters than the Mariners.
Did the Texas Rangers do enough? They added Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, if deGrom, it depends. Does deGrom give him 12 starts? Does deGrom give him 25 starts? If deGrom gives him 25 starts, then because didn't they also sign Eovaldi too? I think they signed Nathan Eovaldi and stuff. So they've done some stuff with the pitching. But their big get is deGrom, right? They went out and spent a lot of money, 5 years of deGrom when he hasn't pitched a full season in a couple years. Mm-hmm. So does that blow up in their face?
Probably.
One would suspect that it's not going to go well.
I think they're hoping to get 1 or 2 full seasons, and the rest is dead money. And it's just, I don't know so how valuable is a player really? Is it their whole contract, or is it how you've broken up the numbers? And because are you saying that you would pay Jacob deGrom, what was his contract?
180 or something like that.
So you're paying. So would you do 2 180? Because that's kind of what you're getting. And but you don't know what year it's going to happen, or if it's going to be over the course of one good season is actually half of one season and half of another.
If I had to predict how the AL West was going to shake out this year, I would say the Astros still win the West. The Mariners are 2, the Rangers are 3, the Angels are 4, and then you've got the lowly Oakland A's in 5th by a long.
Long I don't know. I'm
if the Oakland A's,
believer. I'm an Oakland believer.
Oakland wins 60 games this year, I'll be shocked.
Oakland's in 4th place, the Angels in 5th. Because they still are. Don't they still have what's his name as their coach? Who's the Angels coach?
No, they hired a new guy. They didn't keep the.
Oh, they didn't?
No, they didn't keep the guy that threw at our guy.
Oh,
I can't remember his name. Phil Nevin.
Nevin?
Yeah,
they got rid of him. I thought they said they were going to keep him.
I don't think so.
I could have sworn they said they were keeping him. We got to Google this real quick.
Go Google, right?
I'll cut this off from the recording. We're at an hour, by the way.
Angels.
So we're going to wrap this up here real quick.
Manager. Oh, is it really still Phil Nevin?
Yeah.
Oh, it is Phil Nevin.
Yeah, I was right. Google. Thank you, Google. Phil Nevin is still the coach. Yeah, because I saw the headline about it, and they're like, the Angels decided to keep him. And that was the signal to me that the Angels were going to do nothing this offseason.
They're just a shithole organization.
Yeah, that
keep
they were
a
just
manager that
out.
Purposely just throws at guys.
Well, he's dead. Like he's a dead duck. No one wants to take this job, and or the Angels are going to have to pay so many millions of dollars to take this job, and it would have to be a long-term thing, and they can't get anyone long-term. So I think part of it was Artie Moreno being...
Yeah, the Angels kind of went through a weird offseason where they were going to sell it. He was going to put the team up for sale, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to put the team for sale. And nobody really knows what they're doing with Ohtani. There's no chance they sign Ohtani before he hits free agency.
Ohtani has no interest in going back there.
Ohtani's not going back to the Angels.
He was asked a question about that, and he pretty much gave he said no comment, pretty much. And
I mean, Angels fans enjoy the last year of Ohtani because you're not seeing him in an Angels uniform after this year.
In all honesty, I think the Angels end up probably in 3rd place, possibly in 2nd place, because Ohtani goes nuclear and wins the MVP this year. And I think that is... I think everyone's going to just give it to him. He has to kind of fall off the map. If he's like a top 5 pitcher and a top 5 hitter, again, he's getting the MVP. And
he kind of got screwed out of it last year just because Aaron Judge hit 62.
Yeah, and you give it to Judge there. I have no problem giving it to him. He broke a record that had been standing for a long time without the help of steroids. However, possible that Major League Baseball doctored the balls for the Yankees. I don't know. I heard a rumor. I don't know how true it is. It's probably just nonsense, but it's, a thing.
It didn't help him down the stretch because he struggled to hit home runs down the stretch.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I was like, I thought he was going to get upwards of like mid-60s, and he barely cracked. It was coming down to the end. Like the last couple of weeks, he could not get a home run. Like that home run watch kept going and going. I was like, is he actually going to do it?
Every time he came up, they showed it on TV, and I was watching, but I was like,
so there's
eventually
a chance
I ran out of
the Angels could finish higher. I don't see them being better than the Mariners. I don't believe in their pitching. I don't believe in the Tyler Anderson. I mean, the Angels did nothing this offseason. They went and got Tyler Anderson.
Tyler Anderson
Tyler of the once Mariners fame. I mean, he's not a headliner of a rotation. So you've got Ohtani, and I guess you got Patrick Sandoval, but beyond that, what do you have? A bunch of nobodies. So I can't, even if Rendon is healthy all year and Ohtani and Trout, can they overcome the pitching? I mean, at least with the Mariners, that the pitching is going to keep them in games.
Yeah.
So we might not have the offensive upside of having a Trout, Ohtani, and a Rendon when healthy. We do kind of match it, with Teo and Julio and Eugenio.
Yeah, good one. Okay. I was like, the third one's getting a bit sketchy. But Ty France, that's not really on the same level.
You can't. And you have supporting cast with Raleigh and France and stuff.
I think we could be
Angels,
deeper. But,
it might be a little bit deeper, but the Angels do have the top upside.
Yeah,
there's no arguing that part.
Angels picked up Hunter Renfroe too, and I don't know. They seem to be trying to fill in around the gaps and not do the stars and scrubs, but do stars and slightly less scrubby. Where does the AL Central shake out? You got the Clevelands and the Chicagos minus Tony La Russa, and you got Minnesota bringing back Peg Leg, Carlos Correa, and the perennially broken Byron Buxton.
My thoughts on that division is going to be the Indians, and I think the Indians are going to win it fairly easily.
Yeah.
The Twins could ever keep Buxton healthy, right? I mean, that guy is the walking MVP if he could ever stay healthy.
He posted something like 4 wins in 100 games last year, and he was not all that great. He hit a bunch of home runs and he played defense, but his overall line wasn't all that inspiring. It's just like he's that good at defense and base running and stuff, but health. Always been health.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be the Indians, the Twins, the White Sox, and then you've got, between the Royals and the Tigers, who cares?
It kind of, it's a fight for the number one pick. Who in the East? You got the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays, and the O's,
and the Blue Jays.
And the BJs.
So in the East, I would say it's going to be the Yankees going out and getting Rendon, assuming he can stay healthy. But if you can go out and throw a Cole, a Rendon, and a Nestor Cortez, and a Domingo Germán, even if you don't have Frankie Montas, that's still a really good, solid 4 person.
I think they should also re-sign James Paxton just so they can have the collection of broken pitchers.
He's still a free agent, right?
Probably, yeah. Because what? I mean, let's give him another pillow contract. It's like, guys, this dude hasn't been healthy for years. He's not coming back. Stop giving him money. Can you give me like half of that amount to do the same amount of stuff for your organization that James Paxton does? Because he does literally nothing and he's costing you millions of dollars. But if you got money to burn, I'll be more than happy to take it off your hands.
So I think the one team that kind of falls back in this division from where they finished is the Orioles. I was kind of disappointed. I thought the Orioles might make a splash. I thought they would be, go after like a Rendon or someone. They needed someone, and granted they're the Orioles and they're going to have to overpay because they're kind of the upstart team, and those upstart teams always have to overpay. But the fact that they really did nothing, they got Adam Frazier at $8 million. Congratulations on burning $8 million, lighting it on fire.
Yo, he was playoff hero Adam Frazier to you, sir. All-star, former all-star Adam Frazier.
So I would say
they got a bargain at $8 million.
It's going to be the Yankees, the Blue Jays, The Rays, the Red Sox, and I think the Orioles actually slipped back into last.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, the Red Sox still suck. The Red Sox did nothing to really get better, and they're going to miss out on Trevor Story all season. So it's just Rafael Devers with a... Did he get a new contract?
He did get that 11-year, 330, something like that. Something very similar to what Machado just signed.
That's fine. But, I mean, have fun.
Losing.
Yeah, maybe you can, help out.
Maybe the ghost of Chris Sale revives himself this year.
Yeah, sure. And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Red Sox at all. I don't like the Yankees pitching. Carlos Rondon was the big red flag with him was, he couldn't stay healthy. So then he goes and pitches 1 year in San Francisco and proves he's healthy, but he's a pitcher. And pitchers can always fall apart, and especially ones with track records of falling apart. So I wouldn't have given him that kind of money, but the Yankees are desperate, and so it'll be interesting to see if the Yankees can keep their pitching together enough. The Rays always do it on a budget, and somehow they come out ahead. So I can't ever discount the Rays. The Blue Jays are good, but they made some questionable moves this offseason. I think it's going to be a fight between the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Rays. The O's and the Red Sox bringing up the rear. The O's have a lot of talent, but yeah, they were kind of an upstart team a bit last year. I think they made the right decision in not overpaying for some of these they're in the same boat as the Mariners. They're a year or two behind them. And so they have to avoid the landmines and avoid overpaying, even for good players, because you just don't really get the value out of them that you need. And it's hard to win and overcoming guys who are not bringing up or holding up their end of the bargain. So, and Cleveland is probably the class of the Central. Quickly, who's your favorites in the National League?
In the National League, I don't really care what the Padres keep spending. They're bringing back about the same team as last year. I think the Dodgers are still the class of the NL West. The Cardinals are in the Central, and the Braves, I see the Braves winning the East.
Over the Mets?
Over the Mets, over the Phillies.
Woo. Is it still going to be a fight down to the end between those three teams in that division?
I would imagine it's going to be a hotly contested division. I just think the Braves...
The Nats and the Marlins are already out of it.
Yeah,
they've already gone home. Like, nah, we're done.
I mean, the only thing on the Marlins is Sandy Alcantara. So every fifth day, the national radio and TV will be like, oh, look what this guy did. Oh, he threw 9 innings again. Oh, man, what does he do that, like, every fifth day?
Jazz Chisholm, because he has a cool name or something. He's on the cover of the video game. The Cardinals in the Central. The Cubs did things, but probably not enough. That Japanese dude that signed, the outfielder that signed there last year, he's kind of, I don't know, were people real happy with him? He got off to a fast start, and then he kind of slowed down.
Which is expected, right? I mean, he's always going to have the advantage coming over, right? Because nobody knows him. So if he didn't get off to a fast start, you should be really disappointed.
And then he did, and then he kind of graded out as just merely okay. Let's see, the Reds still suck, and who else is in the Central?
The Brewers,
the Pirates. Oh yeah, the Brewers. Are they?
I don't think there's enough there. And then you got all the controversy with Corbin Burns, right?
Yeah, Corbin Burns is super upset. So we'll see how that shakes out. They should probably trade. They should probably blow up that team while they can and try to not rebuild but reload, because they still have good pieces and they can get really good pieces for some of the stuff that they have, but they need to pull that trigger now because they probably don't have enough actual pieces to make it happen. Yeah, and the Dodgers are probably in the West. I'm sure like the Diamondbacks are going to surprise because they always do. Who are your World Series favorites right now?
World Series favorites.
Who would you put money on? You had $100.
I had $100,
and you get 10-1 odds on literally every team.
10-1 odds on anybody.
So $100 to get 1,000. I know that's a great.
That is great odds.
That is. That's gonna pay off real nice.
I would put it on the Astros. I think they're still the.
So I'm talking World Series participants.
Yeah.
Astros versus.
I'm gonna go the Astros versus. I'm gonna go Astros versus the Braves.
Was that round 2? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Astros and Braves. You heard it here first. This is, by the way, we put bets on last year, and we got paid off for our Phillies bet. And
I took the Phillies
Astros.
at 20-1 to win the pennant. And that paid off.
And the Astros at 6-1 because that was the obvious one, and that paid off for us. So yeah, listen to us. We know some shit. Anyway, I think that is about it for this episode.
Glad the baseball season is here. We get through the doldrums of the part after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So now it's just counting down till it's like a month from. This Thursday is when it all kicks off.
Right on. Yeah, so we're looking forward to this Mariners season and another trip to the playoffs where we will be there watching this team. All-Star game here in Seattle as well this year. So, all right. Well, that's it for us. Thank you for listening, and go Mariners, go Hawks, go Seattle.
Go Seattle in general.
Yeah.
Show these people what the Northwest is about.
Damn straight. All right. Peace.